Okay, me too. Cool.
I think we're live. All right, guys. Hello, hello. We have a fun evening set up today.
Yes, we
Some
do. We
fun
definitely have it.
information, some history.
Yeah, get ready, guys. As always, we had a little bit of a technical difficulties starting the stream, but we're here. We did it. We're getting faster at it. So, welcome. All right. History is full of excuses for tyranny, and tonight we're pulling three of the biggest lies out of their roots. The Kremlin says NATO left Putin no choice but to invade Ukraine. They say Ukrainians and Russians are one people. They claim this war is about defending traditional values. Each of these, not just false, they're designed to confuse, paralyze, and make the world hesitate. And hesitation, that's how wars are lost. How empires rise on the bones of the brave. But not tonight. We're done hesitating. This is SlavaCast Live. I'm Slavie, your host on channel Yarchenko with Johnny, live on his channel as well, Young Ukrainians, our tag team Truth Squad. Tonight, we're gutting the three lies that built this war. The lie about Ukrainians and Russians being one people, the romantic rot at the heart of it all, the lie about NATO, why it was never a threat to Russia, and the lie that this war is about morality when it's really about imperialistic sickness. These aren't just stories, they're weapons, excuses for genocide, fuel for imperial fever dreams. And the only way to disarm them? With the loud truth, unfiltered, unapologetic. We're talking history that bites back, timelines that slap, and savage takedowns that will leave Putin's propagandists in their feelings with their vodka. So stick around, because by the end, you'll be armed to call bullshit on anyone peddling this poison. And of course, Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
So before we dive into the carnage, hit that like button like it's a Russian tank. Subscribe so the algorithm doesn't bury the truth under cat videos. Share this stream, spread the fire, and drop your questions in the live chat. We'll torch them at the end of the show. So, TGIF folks, grab a drink, kick back, get comfortable. We're just getting started. This truth bomb is gonna explode. So, Johnny, before we start tearing this apart, why do you think these lies still land for so many in the West? How's Russia still selling this snake oil in 2025?
Very simple, just simple repetition. Russia has a huge information cyber army. Russia doesn't care if it's a truth or half truth or complete lie, obvious lie. Like most of the things that we're going to talk about, it takes 5 seconds of Wikipedia search that you can see it's a lie. However, Russia is beating the truth, which just simple, like they're like a water that keeps dropping in the same spot over and over and over again, and then you hear about it, and you can just, like, for example, Russian and Ukrainian are same people, right? That's a huge propaganda lie by Russia, and it's easy to kind of to dismiss and say, you just talk to any Ukrainian and say, hey, Ukrainian, is it true that you are the same as Russian? And Ukrainian will tell you no, and that should be the end of this. However, it's not so simple, because Russia has spent so much resources, literally billions of dollars, just propagating this one narrative. So a lot of people heard it from many different sources, and it's not enough to just say, listen, it's not true. You kind of have to like dig into it and explain why it's not true. It's not hard to explain. It's kind of fun, actually, but it takes a little bit of knowledge of history, So that's why I'm so excited about it, because I think it's very fun. Um, Russians hate history, by the way. They hate people who know history. You know, if you demonstrate that you understand these things, you looked up some Wikipedia articles, it's game over. Russians don't want to talk to you. You're done. In fact, people who are dedicated to speak this truth, Russia has killed. Some people have lost their lives just for speaking this, what we're gonna discuss today. Um, Another thing, this is a weapon of Russia war. Russia uses history as a weapon. Um, and if this information becomes widely available, like if we had a huge platform like a Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan or anything like that, and we were able to popularize this information for like millions of people, it would be devastating for Russia. They would just have to pack up and go. You know, Russia would stop existing. That's why we're not gonna make Russia stop existing tonight. By the way, Slavie, your microphone just got disconnected.
Sorry, it's not disconnected. We're having audio issues, unfortunately, people in the chat are saying. I'm gonna go on mute while you speak. So
Can
turn
you
your
tell me what's the nature of the what are the people saying?
it's the same problem. You're like low.
I would be low because I turned my way low. Uh, what is it right now? Can you hear me right now? I turned it to like 81%, but they
I
say
can
it's
hear
cracking.
you, but I think there's problems on my mic as well. So I'm gonna go on mute, see if some gets better.
I cannot hear you right now. Can you hear me okay, guys? What are the people saying? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with a very interesting lie that Russians and Ukrainians are one people. That's kind of an evolution. Slightly, I really miss you. I wish you could turn your mic back on.
Um,
Um,
turn your mic even higher because you're still low. You're saying raise
it's
it
at
a bit more.
100%. Is it still low?
I
Is it
can hear
still low?
you
Can you
now.
guys hear me? Sorry, but you know we're gonna have these issues until forever. We're never gonna really figure it out. But what are the people saying right now? Can we hear me?
They can hear you, but low.
All right,
Your
so
audio.
there's only one way to remedy this at this point. Um, I have to. Can you guys hear me better right now? Is it a little better? Don't be shy. Tell me what you can and cannot hear.
I can hear you fine. You are crackling to me, but I guess what they're hearing is
It's up to the
yeah.
people. People have to tell
Yeah.
us if they can hear us or no. Can you
You're,
guys hear it?
Johnny is
Okay.
almost normal. If he raises voice, it will be good. Yeah, just scream.
Logos, it's a little distorted. Yeah. Are you able to raise it in the software at all, Slavie?
I cannot. I'm like looking everywhere.
All right, that's fine. You know, guys, we'll fix it in post. Once we do the short videos out of it, they're gonna sound perfect. But we do appreciate those who are with us live because you guys matter a lot. Thank you for your comments, for your likes already, because that's gonna make our stream visible. So here's a fun thing that we're gonna do. I'm gonna show you some information. This is how important this is. Um, if you guys can see this, this is a Twitter of an official uh, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, and it says President Vladimir Putin said Russians and Ukrainians are one people, a single whole. These words are not driven by some short-term considerations or prompted by the political context. It is what I have said on numerous occasions and what I firmly believe. And this is that face that I wish I'd never see again. But this is kind of serious. Russians will speak about this at length. In fact, in July of 2021, on the Kremlin website was posted an article. It was called "Historical Unity of Russians and Ukrainians," and basically the creator of this article was Putin himself. He went down and he wrote everything. And basically, the gist of the article is that Russians, Belarusians, and Ukrainians are one people. Ukraine is not an independent state, but rather artificial formation. You know, um, and God help Belarusians. But basically, what it comes down to, at the same time, there was a survey on the streets of Moscow, and basically they asked there's random Russian people, and they would confirm these things. They would say, "Oh, Ukrainians are the same as us, same roots, same culture, same language." All of those things are false. And basically, the enemies of Russia kind of turned Ukraine against Russia. That's the Russian understanding of why Ukraine exists. We exist because of enemies of Russia. So that's how this is used. And I've heard many people told to me that, oh, you are Ukrainian, it's the same as Russian or something like that, something of that sort. And I hopefully by the end of our discussion here, you guys will understand how offensive it is to say to a Ukrainian that they are the same as Russian or a brotherly nation of Russia or anything of that sort. Not only it's kind of, it's wrong, it's a lie, but it's also very offensive because it's a language of Russian genocide. That's how they justify, the war, the killing, and also that's how they vilify us, because they also consider us traitors somehow, just because we speak Ukrainian language, just we are because we say our country is Ukraine, not Russia. Um, all of those things are kind of have to be addressed. So where did Russia come up with this thing? They stole it. Before there was a Russian Empire, there was Ukraine was kind of like in a coalition with a Polish, a Rich Pospolita country, which later broke down in like Poland and Belarus, and Czech Republic, Bohemia. And in a great Polish chronicle, there was a legend or a myth called Lech, Czech, and Rus. And basically, the gist of this legend was that there were three brothers. One of them Lech, which gave rise to Polish nation. One of them Czech, which gave rise to Bohemian or Czech Republic, Slavie, that part of nation. And the third one was Rus. Rus is an archaic name of Ukraine. There was a state of Rus long ago on the lands of Ukraine in about 9 to 13th century, in those 5 to 600 years. And then after Rus disappeared from the map of the world, it was Ukraine at that point. Russia, they were called Muscovia at the time. They stole the name Rus for themselves, but they didn't steal it in a proper way. They stole it. They called themselves Russia, which is how foreigners called Rus. So to Russia, this name is foreign. It's not their name. They stole it and applied to themselves the way foreigners called Rus. So Rus, Lech, and Czech, there were three brothers, and they gave rise to three Slavic people. And it's a very interesting story. It's not necessarily true, but it's how Slavic people perceive themselves, perceive their brotherhood among each other. We consider Polish people, even though we have very tough history with Poland. There was also genocide between on both sides, from both sides, between Poland and Ukraine, but we still consider them our brotherly nation. We still consider Czechs a brotherly nation. So when Russia conquered Ukraine, they took that myth and they just started speaking it into existence. There was no like a myth from Russian side; they were just saying it. Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus again. That was part of Great Polish people. They're like the Baltic part of the Lithuanians. So basically, they started saying the same myth. Only now they replaced and put Russians in that myth. Now, this new iteration where Putin is saying that it's a one people, not even like brotherly people, like at least in the myth, it says three different things. This is like super genocidal, basically, when it says it's just one people, basically, like Ukrainians don't really exist. Now, there are a couple problems with this for Russia. And once you get into these problems, that's where it becomes really obvious. And the reason being is there is no such thing as Russian people or Russian ethnicity, right? Because Russia is a multi-ethnic country. You know, they have bunch of different ethnicities. In fact, it's like over 400. It's like crazy amount of ethnicities, and one of the ethnicities composing Russia are Ukrainians. You know, but the biggest ethnicity in Russia, and that's what is Russian best kept secret, is called Ruski. Now, why is this a Russian best kept secret? Russians never translate the word Ruski into other languages. They always say Russian, but in a Russian language, there is two words. There is one for Russian and one for Ruski. Russian is anybody living in Russia, and Ruski is the biggest ethnicity within Russia. And basically, this ethnicity is it's called Ruski, but it's not necessarily an ethnic group. It's just a name for anybody who wants to be called Ruski. So this ethnicity was invented by Stalin in 1937. Before that, all of these people were called Velika Rus, which is Great Russians. And basically, Great Russians is anybody who lived on those territories. And it's hundreds of ethnicities. In Russian Empire, all those people were written up as Velika Rus, and that's how they entered Soviet Union. And in 1937, Stalin renamed that group of just a mix of ethnicities. He renamed them into Ruski. Now, in Russia, anybody can join that group. In fact, so you see this green area, that's Ruski. It's 81%. Again, it's not necessarily an ethnic group because it's a like empire group. Anybody, it's a free to join. Anybody can join Ruski. When Stalin came up with that name, he said Ukrainians, Belarusians, and all people in Moscow regions should join that thing. Ukrainians said no thanks. Belarusians said no thanks, but people within Russia, they did join. They say, oh, we are Ruski. I know many people who, let's say, father is Tatar, mother is Belarusian. They they come to receive their passport when they're 16. They ask them, "What's your ethnicity?" They say, "Oh, I'm Belarusian." Said, "Oh, why don't you just write Ruski? It's so much easier. Ruski is so much better. Right now when Russians conquer, they steal Ukrainian children. They have refugees immigrating to Russia, just fleeing from war. They are ending up in Russia, and Russians encourage them, just change your last name, write that you're Ruski, and that's the gist of this um, ethnicity within Russia. When Putin speaks in Russian language, he says Ruski, but when they translate it into English language, there's no word for Ruski in English language. There's no word for Ruski in Ukrainian language. We only have one word for Russia. Americans have one word for Russia. It's a Russian best kept secret, and it's by design, because Russians, they basically, all those ethnicities that live within Russia, it's kind of an inconvenience for Russia. They are doing a systematic ethnocide. Basically, they're trying to make sure that all those local people within Russia, they eventually they forget their native language, they forget their tradition, they forget where they came from, and more people will sign up and just become Ruski. So this ethnicity, like the collective ethnicity, it's composed like of Ukrainians, of Tatars, of a bunch of. I'm gonna show you a quick list of um, some ethnicities of Russia, and it's pretty extensive. It's a lot of peoples, a lot of different nationalities. Uh, Hopefully you guys can see, but basically there's over 300 different ethnicities here, like Abazin, Apsua, Avaral, Andal, Arshishtib. None of them are calling themselves that. They're all written in as Ruski, all of these people. That just letter A, Achvachts, then letter B, Bagvaldins, Capuchin, Kvanal. By the way, you like some Capuchin? There's some weird ones. Ibdidi, Cezi, Kirdi, Idari, Hvarchinci. Basically, the list goes, it's a never-ending list. Bashkir, Besserman, Buryat, Veps, Vod, Gagauz. There's some of them are like Georgians, so Georgians have a country, right? Some of them Greeks have a country, but a lot of these they're only represented within Russia. Ajar, Inglaits, Lani, Migreli, all of them are Ruski, right? So uh, all listen, you guys. I'm just gonna scroll. I'm not gonna name them all. Just look at all of this, right? All of this. Ruski, okay? Um, and so that's what Russia is saying, that Ukrainians and all those mix of ethnicities in Russia are same people. In a way, the way they see it, like if they conquer us and they make us to say we're Ruski, and we're gonna become the part of that empire ethnicity, maybe that's correct from their point. But uh, so one of those ethnicities is actually Ukrainians. You know how hard it is to be a Ukrainian in Russia? It's like being a leper. You know, Ukrainians, just to survive, a lot of them, they do sign up and they say, "Oh, I'm Ruski," and Russians understand that. They welcome it. They say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Like stop being a Nazi. Just come join us. You're Ruski. You know, but we have our own language, we have our own culture, we have our own land. we when Stalin invented this Ruski ethnicity in 1937, he said that Ukrainians should join and become Ruski because we are a little brother. Like Ukrainian nation, he lovingly called us a little brother. Even Ukraine is like 1,000 years older than Ruski, you know. So how are we little brother if we have a history where there was nothing on those lands, no history, no, they received their literacy, their language, everything they received from Ukraine, and then they want us to forget all of that, just at the fear of being basically destroyed and erased, and join and say that we are Ruski. Now, there's another kind of caveat, and this comes from misinformation. Somebody on, I just want to share this really quick. Somebody on internet was spreading um, misinformation. There's no other way to say it, that a term Ruskis or Ruski is considered derogatory when Europeans use it to refer to you. And basically, all bunch of like Americans and Europeans are discussing it and saying that it's old-fashioned, but it's still a slur. And there's like some Siberian says, yes, it's an ethnic slur as a Japs, etc. So this is a Russian that's chiming in. By the way, it's a complete lie. There's nothing further from the truth. In fact, it's a complete reversal. A Ruski is a term of pride. If you are Ruski, you are an elite part of Russian society. That's why you know a lot of like in let's say in Soviet Union, if you were not Ruski, you could not hold high positions. You could not be high in the anywhere in the society. You could not basically do anything. You would be a loser. You know, Ruski is Russia is a very chauvinistic country, and they say the only way to escape chauvinism is join Ruski, become part of Ruski ethnicity. It's a the best thing that can happen to a person in Russia is to become Ruski. Just forget your all you have to do, forget your language, forget your ethnicity, change your name preferably, you know, because all of these ethnicities they have weird last names which Russia doesn't like. They like, you know, certain names. We're not gonna get into that right now. By the way, Slavie, do you have anything to add as we're speaking to this? Because I'm kind of rambling on. Maybe you
No,
have anything.
I was laughing when you said when Russians say like just stop being a Nazi. I was laughing on the floor, but it's
That's
true.
exactly what they're saying, though.
Yeah, there's even they have a song by this guy called Yaruski as well.
I I
Terrible.
cannot believe that I cannot believe that you said that because that's exactly where I'm going.
This
So
was not planned, guys.
listen, Russians will lie to you. Like they will say, okay, Ruski is kind of a derogatory term. When I say that Ruski is a best kept secret of Russia, it's true. And Russians have killed for people who have like a big enough platform and talk about these things, because Russians do not translate the term Ruski to any other language, including Ukrainian. We only have one word, Russian. Um, so basically, when this is Shaman, it's the biggest star right now, and it's his song called "Ya Ruski." And the gist of the song is, "I'm such a lucky guy. I was born Ruski. The whole world is hating me, but I will conquer the world. Everything will become Ruski at the end." Um, and basically this guy he charges like $250,000 per concert. Russians pay huge money to arrive at his concert. They basically pay like half of monthly salary. um, Ruski is a term of pride. It's what people call themselves, you know, the top thing. That's why there's 81% of Russian, but you have to understand it's a mix. It's a mix of all kinds of different ethnicity. It's not like Ukrainian. Ukrainian can be engulfed in Ruski. And, a lot of Ruskis I asked, like, do you remember what's your ethnicity? And some say no. And some say, excuse me, I was dating this girl. She's from Russia, and she was of Assyrian ethnicity. It's a small ethnicity at this point. Back in the day, it was like a huge thing. And basically, she's a proud Assyrian, at least her father is. And her brother went to the passport to receive passport, and he said, "I'm Assyrian." And they said, just say you're Ruski." And he said, "No, no, no, I'm Assyrian." And he came home, it said Assyrian. And then she came to the passport, and they said, "Just say you're Ruski." And she did. She said Ruski. And in her passport it says Ruski, but she's Assyrian. She came home, and her father yelled at her. He's like, "How could you do this? We are Assyrian. We're proud Assyrian people. Russia is trying to destroy us," which is true. Russia has this quiet, kind of forceful way of kind of pushing out ethnic languages, ethnic identities, and more. Their goal is so whole of the Russia eventually becomes Ruski. I also uh, I also had an interesting encounter. We were celebrating over here in Los Angeles. We were celebrating like Independence Day of Ukraine, and there is this Ruski showed up, but he was one of the ethnicities called Ivan. Ivan, it's a small but proud ethnicity, and he came and he was very polite, but he came to talk to Ukrainians and kind of just ask us some Russian propaganda, like, "Why are you fighting? Because Russia is trying to liberate you," or something like that. And I look at him; he looks like Bruce Lee, right? He's like 5'2". He's like Asian looking, and I said, "What's your ethnicity?" He's like, "I'm Ruski." I said, "But that's not true. Like, I mean, do you remember he's like, "I come from a Evan family. I asked him, "Do you speak Evan language?" He says, "Well, no, it's like for villages, like my grandparents speak Evan language, but at school they don't teach it anymore. Why? We don't need it. We all speak Ruski language." That's what actually the Russian language within Russia is not called Russian language. Because you understand, Russia has two words, Ruski and Russian. Within Russia, there's no Russian language. There's Ruski language, actually. So he says everybody speaks Ruski language. Ruski language is the best language in the world and stuff like that. I'm saying, look at you. Russia conquered you. They did genocide in your lands, which is true. They raped your great parents. They gave you new word. His name is like Alexander or something. They gave you a name. They stripped you of your heritage, of your. That's why we're fighting. So we don't become one of you. So because Russia wants to make a Ruski out of us, and that's why we're resisting. Because we don't want to turn into you. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's what I told him. I mean, look at you. You don't remember anything. They turned you into Ruski. In fact, the worst thing that Russia can do to a Ukrainian, it's not to kill Ukrainian, it's to turn Ukrainian into Ruski. Um, and that's very sad. Um, so I don't know if I should go into any more um, history, kind of like to drive the point home. Um, it's very confusing from Russia's point because they are hiding these terms and names, and they also using Ukrainians' old name Rus for themselves. But basically,
Say their real name. Their actual name. It's Muscovites.
yeah. So Moscovia became Russia or Russia, and Rus became Ukraine. And that's where the confusion is. And Russia is exploiting that confusion to the max. When Russia comes to you to kill you, the first thing they do is they put up these posters. This is in one of the um, Kherson regions. When they came and occupied, they started raping women right away. But one of the first things they put up, um, it says Ruskies and Ukrainians are one people. So after Kherson was liberated, you can see that this person is taking that poster down. That is the language of Russian genocide. Um, if we go to, I mean, I can talk about history for a long time, but basically I'll just leave it there. And I'll just say that just to kind of to surmise everything that's been said, to say that Russian and Ukrainian is one people, first of all, it's wrong. It's a lie. Second of all, it's offensive to a Ukrainian because, especially to the one that knows his language and knows that it's not the same language as Russians would say, knows its culture, its traditions. Um, and third, it's if you repeat that, you supporting the Russian genocidal rhetoric. You're supporting genocide of Ukrainians this way. This is what Russians are actively doing to refugees, to the children. We returned some of the children back from Russian captivity, and they all report that they were forced to stop speaking Ukrainian, to use only Russian language, to change names, to call themselves Ruskis, and they had to do it just to survive. The last thing I just want to show you is something really quick. It just adds to the point where why it's so freaking infuriating when they call us Ruski. This is Ukrainian Kobzar. Slavie knows what this is. Um, it was like a social estate, like a social demographic of Ukrainians, of people who were traveling with this musical instrument all across Ukrainian land, and they would sing Ukrainian folk songs in Ukrainian language, telling stories about Ukrainian people, Ukrainian families, Ukrainian heroes. Um, Russia has been um, kind of killing these people throughout history, uh, not allowing them to roam the land like they traditionally would do. There was bans of their songs. If any of the songs was printed, Russia would burn those books, and all this culminated in 1933. Stalin uh, had held a huge summit of these Kobzars in Kharkiv, and they just executed a whole bunch of these people. Um, I'm sure Slavie knows about that story. It's a heartbreaking story. It's like one of the ways how Russians are ethnociding Ukraine. And of course, if you destroy all our songs, all our, you ban our language as Russia has done, we will turn into a Ruski, or as they translate it into English, Russian, which is incorrect translation. Um, then of course we will become one of them, but that's worse than death. So that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah. Actually, my great granddad, he was like he was a professor, very educated person. He wrote many books, and when it was happening, he had to go into hiding and burn it all and erase his identity. And yeah, because otherwise he would get killed. Anybody who was a free thinker or artists, songwriters was huge. Everybody, Soviet Union, just murdered them, and they used to hang them in the forest. That was like their thing. Just brutal.
We had a singer hanged in the forest by KGB during Soviet Union. He was just a singer of Ukrainian folk songs. Um, it's another thing that, when Russians go around, they say that there are no Ukrainians folk songs. However, you have to understand that there are literally no Russian folk songs. Literally no, none. Um, and there's a 17,500 officially registered Ukrainian folk songs in UNESCO. Ukraine is the biggest contributor of folk songs in the world, right? So when Russians say something like that, it's like crazy, right? But they keep repeating it, they keep repeating it, they keep repeating it, and unfortunately, um, you know, sometimes that message is overshadowed by it's louder than the truth.
Absolutely. I just want to add to that that even our DNA is different. Ukrainians tend to cluster more with and Polish and uh, sorry, I just had it. Belarusian mixes in Baltic.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and also language, the whole language thing. Ukrainian language is Slavic, but it's closer also to Polish and Belarusian influences. Um, so no, we don't speak one language. It doesn't even sound the same.
I have Logos Fabula asking, are those 300 languages of Russia are still alive in some groups? They are. However, right now, Russia will do everything to push it out. And that's what they do. Like the biggest um, group after Ruskies within Russia is Tatars. Tatars are the biggest group. And what they do is Russia pretends, oh, we celebrate your ethnicity, identity, language, and they put in schools like Tatar language so Tatars can study in their language. However, eventually they shorten and shorten and shorten the amount of Tatar languages. They have like jurisdiction, like legislation where you cannot be elected into office if you don't know enough Ruski language and you just only know Tatar. So Tatar is kind of useless. They make sure that it's less and less useful. And then, like my friend, he's half Tatar, half Belarusian. Eventually, like he doesn't speak Tatar language. He doesn't really celebrate his traditions anymore. He shows up to get a passport and they say, hey, just sign up to be Ruski. And that's what happens. It is crazy. It is crazy. It's a genocidal tactic, and that's why Russia keeps it under wraps. That's why they don't translate both of those things into English language. When they speak to you, they only say Russian. In Ukrainian, it's Rosiyana, abo Rosiyski. It's Russian. Nobody in the world has the translation of Ruski. In fact, I showed you that Reddit article where they kind of trying to say that it's a derogatory term, which is nothing further from the truth. It's actually a celebration term. It's a term of a prestige, of pride within Russia. But if you're gonna try to say Ruski, they will kind of bully you into stop saying that because it might be derogatory. And a lot of people will read that article. Don't learn any history from Russians. You're gonna be misinformed.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
it's
Uh,
all fake. It's all made up, their history, because they have no culture. That's why they need to genocide and steal other people's cultures around them
it's
to
it's
create
real.
this mirage of great Russia.
It's really fun to ask Russian to name one folk song, just one, because all of the songs that they have, they said like about the birch tree, Berezanka, and everything. They all had an author in 20th century. You know, you have to understand that Ruski was created in 1937 by Stalin, right? And before that, it was Velika Rus, which is a great Rus, and Ukrainians were called Small Rus. It was a empire language, empire lingo. They called Ukrainians a little Rus or small Rus. And by the way, maybe there was no ill intent at that time because Rus was in Ukraine. Rus was entirely in Ukraine, and maybe it was a nod to like a British, where they say small Britain is the original Britain and Great Britain is the lands that it grew. So maybe they meant small Rus, like Ukrainians are the original Rus, and the Great Rus is how the uh, Ukrainian influence grew. But right now, and eventually, Russians started using like small Rus, like it's a less than human, like, and they still talk to us. Oh, you're a small Rus, like Ukrainian. But that was the language of the Russian Empire. And up to 1937, all those peoples that lived in Russia, like 400 of them or however many, I couldn't read the whole thing. I'm not going to take the whole stream just to read all those ethnicities. They were called Velika Rus or Great Rus. It's just to bunch them up in an empire. And in one day, Stalin renamed them into Ruski. And that's what they're called until today. And due to Russian ethnocidal practices, they're encouraging everybody within Russia to forget their own ethnicity and kind of join Ruski. So, um, it's one thing you can do is just ask Ukrainian, are you the same as Russian? And we're going to tell you no. But see, it takes a long time to explain why it's a no, right? There's a saying, it's an old saying that says, one idiot can ask so many questions in 5 minutes that it's going to take 100 wise men a lifetime to explain. And this is kind of one of those things. It's easy to say it like we're one people, which actually it's a new thing. They've been saying forever that we're like brotherly nations, brotherly people, like Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, brotherly people. That's a lie as well. But Putin kind of took it to the next level, and he's kind of saying not brotherly people, it's just one people separated by evil Americans and Europeans, evil West and whatnot.
He also does this with Slavic. He says all Slavs are one people, but Slavs know that
But at the same time, they
there's
hate
no
Polish people.
one culture. It's what makes Slavic, you know, what unique is because there's so many different cultures, Slavic cultures within the realm. But for Russians is, Slavs are all one people. Again, I personally don't even consider Russians Slavic. I say they're Mongols. But
Technically, originally they're not Slavic because the language they received from Ukraine, because Ukraine was a center of literacy and education. We had our universities while they still were called Moscovia. They were just eating people at that time. And
there were
huh?
swampy starts. There were swamp.
Yeah. I mean, it's history. It's nothing wrong with that. That's what's happened. That's fine. But they received their language from us, and they write it the same way as we gave it to them, but they say it differently. They cannot pronounce it all the letters because it's an artificial language for those territories. Like we say chogo, and we write chogo. Um, and they also write chago, but they don't say chago, they say chava. They say chva, kva, kind of like the which corresponds to the native languages of those groups, which is Mordva, Chud, Erza, Moksha, like all those, it's hard for them to pronounce these letters, but they still write it the way Ukrainians write it, but they cannot pronounce it. They pronounce it their way, which is Ruski way, but they calling it like the perfect way right now. And we are kind of like a funny, they say the Ukrainian is a funny version of the great Ruski language, which is
Yeah,
like,
sorry. Even growing up around Russians, they would call me like a villager. Like if I would speak Ukrainian, they'd be like, "Oh, you're such a villager." speak
Yeah,
Russian, and that's what they made you think. And then, once I've grown up, I was like, no, you're the
yeah.
villager here.
That's a general rhetoric in Russia and all Russian controlled territories that a native language is for villages, and cities and education and high earning positions is all Ruski language, which is a great language. I grew up with this phrase, the great and powerful Ruski language, the great and powerful Ruski language. And those 5 or 6 books that are written in that language, Russians will push down your throat. They killed everybody who was writing those books, like Dostoevsky, Bulgakov, all those people Russians killed. But then all those books, they're like, this is great Ruski literature. You have to, and somehow it works because like Jordan Peterson, he read that horrible book when he was young, and he's so proud of it till today. And basically, he was kept saying and referring to that book until Russians realized that he's ready for recruiting. And now he's like a Russian agent. He spews all kinds of Russian propaganda. So
But he
it
went
starts.
to Russia, and it was like for mental health, and he was like in their facility for. I did a whole episode on this. It's crazy. He was in this facility, mental health facility, and
Yeah,
they put him out for, I want to say a couple of months, but I think it was a couple of weeks that he was completely out. I mean, they say it was for mental health to get rid of his Xanax addiction. But I mean, the brain, I don't even want to know what the hell they did to him. But
don't
yeah,
trust your brain to the Russians. You're never going to be the same.
but yeah, why I call Russians Mongols is because Russians also chose to adapt kind of Mongols at the time, their ways of tyranny, of having leader, of just being, wars, taking over, imperialistic kind of ways of, you have to fight for land, whereas Ukraine, literally Cossacks quite possibly wrote the world's first constitution.
Philip
When
Orlik, yeah.
adapted, yeah, Philip Orlik, or
It
adapted
was
more,
written in 1710. There was no constitution in the world before that. It's
yeah.
a very first constitution,
It was
and
Europe, sure, was Europe's first constitution, and there's actually a story that there could be that it was it gotten into Montesquieu's hands in Paris, what Philip Orlik wrote, and which quite possibly could have been influence on American Constitution when it was written.
eventually, yeah, because it got into France. Because he immigrated into France, he was escaping the wars with Russia at that time, and then he maybe somebody brought it to America because the American Constitution was largely based on some of the ideas of French Constitution and English Constitution as well.
Even I'm just saying, even in history, where Russians always needed to have a Tsar, dictator, Ukrainians always would, even in Kievan Rus, even though we did have uh, like leaders, but like they gave power to the people, and Cossacks also gave power to the people. And now I want to say, because now there's a lot of stuff coming out about Trypillian culture, which was mind blowing, and it's the first, people of all civilization comes out. Now it comes
The
out.
first people who built cities, built large cities.
Yes, they had
Yeah,
cities, and what it turns out that they also kind of believed in this, like giving power to the people as well. They had systems that within those cities that were really extremely advanced. So I think giving uh, power to the people, really, there's something about it that it comes from Ukraine, and where Ukrainians get this kind of, and always had it
yeah,
through
that's
their
what
DNA.
I think. Ukrainians are very much power to the people, and Russians are very much about a leader and they do everything under that leader. So when Russians have a chance to elect a leader, they will elect the most vile, the most vicious person, and together with him, they're gonna do all kinds of crimes. They're gonna like torture, rape, pillage, and then once they get defeated, eventually they blame everything on that leader. They say it's him, he made us do it. And then some time passes, and then they anoint that person to holiness. They pronounce that person a holy person. They're gonna make icons, like they're doing the icons of Stalin. They're doing like the walks with Stalin with the cross, like he was killing Christians, basically murdering. But they waited long enough, and now he's like the holy Christian figure in Russian culture. So, what did you want to talk about today, Slavie?
Johnny, I actually have a couple of hot seat questions for you, just for
No
fun.
way.
Break it up. All right.
Is that from the
Um,
chat?
no, this is from me. We'll go to the chat after the stream. So, guys, stick around because we'll answer your questions afterwards. But these are my questions.
Okay.
All right, here goes. Does debunking this one people lie ever make you rage more at people who still buy into it?
I mean, no, it's not. If you buy into it, it's not your fault. There's an information war out there, and Russia wants to win this war. It's very important because if Russia loses information war, they will lose every other war that they're waging. In fact, for Russia, the actual war, as they're explaining, the war on the ground where they kill Ukrainians point blank and whatnot, it's about 25% of Russian war effort. 75% of what Russia is doing, the billions of dollars they're investing, it's waged in information space, in political space, in buying politicians, in corrupting countries that are surrounding Russia, or sometimes even on the other continent, in United States and Canada, in Australia, wherever they get their hands on. They spend enormous amounts of money, and it's so important. Like what we're doing right now. I mean, of course, the real heroes are people in trenches, are people who are dying from Russian invasion right now. But this is so important in this war. Just the information alone. If somehow we can make this information known to large quantities of people, maybe to 10% or 15% of all the people, Russia is going to lose tremendously, because there's nothing worse for Russia than correct understanding of history, uh, uh, untwisting of all the lies that Russia has concocted, of genocidal rhetoric. They cannot even tell you what their biggest ethnicity in their country is called, because of the vile nature of what it means, the erosion of ethnicities within Russia. If somebody is going to start explaining to you what Ruski is, you're going to be horrified. It's horrific, right? So Russia doesn't even do that. They keep it under wraps. They don't want to start that argument. If you start it, they're going to say, oh, that's just a derogatory term, which is, again, the biggest lie ever.
All
But
right.
I'm not enraged at people who got victims to Russian propaganda. It's our job to go and to educate and to bring as much of this information as we can. So please like, please comment. Thank you, Lagos Fabula, for commenting. Anybody who's liking, who's commenting, who's spreading, thank you for doing that, because that's our war right here, right now.
All right. Next quick question, and then we'll move on to the next uh, point, next debunk. But how do you shut down a Putin fan when they pull the but language similarities card?
Language similarities is understandable. I mean, Russian is not as similar to Ukrainian as Polish to Ukrainian. or Belarusian to Ukrainian. There's about 60 to 70% of Russian and Ukrainian language being similar. There's like 70 to 80% of Ukrainian and Polish being similar. Same thing with Belarusian. You never see a Belarusian trying to say that all Ukrainians are actually Polish, you know, or the other way. You mean like it's not like, and even if it's the same language, you know, which it's not true, by the way. But somehow Russians think, oh, because it's the same language, we can do a genocide, right? No, you cannot do. You know, Austria speaks German, right? Austrian people speaks German. That doesn't give Germany the right to go and do a genocide. In fact, Hitler did that, and uh, 6 years later, he had to uh, put a bullet in his brain. So that's what you say. You know, it doesn't. By the way, it doesn't matter. We do have a different language. It's a completely different language. In fact, I mean, we can talk about language. By the way, that's like a propaganda thing that we can have a whole stream about just the Ukrainian and Russian language and the differences there. But even if it was the same language, absolutely the same 100%, which it's not, stay the fuck in Russia. Don't come to our country. You know, leave us alone. You know, go do your Russian language thing, Ruski. It's not Russian. Back in Russia, and never come to Ukraine. That's what you say to a person like that.
There's an interesting point about linguistically that someone has made, and I think I support and makes sense. But he said, as long as anywhere is spoken Russian, Russians will try to come and invade you. So stop speaking Russian, because that's
Yeah,
their number one like excuse.
yeah. Don't speak Ruski. Don't learn Ruski. Don't read Ruski literature. Don't see the great Ruski ballet. The any Russian movies or cartoons, turn it off. Switch the channel. Any Hollywood movie that keeps putting Russians in there like it's a Tourette syndrome, turn it off. Just you know, speak your truth that way. Turn anything Russian off. It's a matter of self-preservations, because there was this meeting. It was a Sakurov. Sakurov, it's a great Russian director, and he was receiving a medal from Putin for his movies, and he said, "What I do is I shoot movies, and when I go and show my movies, first I go with my movies, and then you go with your guns." And he meant that as a compliment to Putin. But as an American, as a European, as anybody else in the world, think about how that sounds. Russians make their literature, their movies, their any kind of cultural soft power. They send it in before they send the army.
All right. That was great. Thank you so much, Johnny. Should we move on? And then
Yes,
we'll
please.
come back to questions. All right. I just want to shout out to Desade for a super chat with like the most loveliest message. Thank you so much. Saying, this U.S. Army veteran thinks Ukrainians are amazing. Ukraine will win this war. Hearts and minds win wars. Please remember this when you're feeling down. Smile, Slavie. Turn that frown upside down. I'm smiling, I'm just concentrating. But thank you so much to say for such a lovely, sweet message. And thank you so much for the super chat as well. Really helps the channel out. So appreciate
I'm
it.
smiling. I'm smiling because I'm done. I only wanted to talk about this infuriating lie that Ukrainians and Ruskies are the same people, and I'm finished. But Slavia has so much work to do. She has so much work to do. But I will support you, Slavia. I will I will do I will do what I can. I'm gonna be here for you. To get you started, I'm gonna So this is the guy who invented the first Russian grammar in 1757. So Ukraine already had books published and written. Ukraine already had universities where this guy, by the way, he studied in a Ukrainian university in Kiev. That's and then he went back to St. Petersburg and he created his first Russian grammar ever published in 1757, which gave rise to Russian language. All right, Slavie, it's all you now.
Yeah. I just want to add all these like artists from the past, like even Tchaikovsky. You look where he was born, Ukraine. All these, which by the way, I do argue the case that Tchaikovsky was Ukrainian because he wrote some of his best, even though he did write like for the Russian Empire, but he did say that he wrote his best work in Ukraine. He was born to Ukrainian parents because a lot of Ukrainians do like to say like, oh, don't go to see Nutcracker, Swan Lake, because Tchaikovsky.
Don't go see
Don't
Nutcracker.
no. Don't go see it if it's a Russian company or Russian dancers. But
Unfortunately,
you have
even that
even ballet coming doing Swan Lake, which to that I say go. So
it's time to say goodbye to all the Russian. It's a
but
culture
it's
of
not
genocide.
Russian though. That's the thing. It's not Russian. Even the stories that they have in Swan Lake, Giselle is a Malanka story from like Ukrainian folk. All
That's
this
true.
is stolen. It's not Russian. Also, Kelly, a lot of it is French. So a lot of it is Italian. It's not Russian. It's this idea that the Bolshoi theater, but it's also propaganda that they said that they're the best, like their ballerinas, their theater is the best. It's not. It really isn't, and their technique and everything that they created, it really isn't the best. So that's just another one of Russian lies. Maybe
And they
people.
also killed Tchaikovsky, Russians. They killed him, and as soon as he was dead, they quickly started pushing his music down everyone's throat and saying the great Russian music. And the only reason they killed him is because the emperor of the time, I think it was Alexander first or third, whatever, he was annoyed that Tchaikovsky was gay. He was very homophobic, and they just went and poisoned Tchaikovsky. They killed him just to please the Tsar.
Yeah. I don't know, but I do think if do support ballet if it's a Ukrainian company because they do actually come to United States and do tours, and they also put on Ukrainian ballets as well. There's so many with Ukrainian composers, but they also do the classic ones. So do please do support that.
I
And
will go to see Ukrainian composers and Ukrainian stories. There are plenty of good, original, very nice Ukrainian stories. There's so many of them, much more than whatever Tchaikovsky created. They're very melodic. Ukraine has incredible musical traditions, which Tchaikovsky borrowed from. But you can go and hear originals, original Ukrainian stories, original things. It's up to you if you want to go to like to Ukrainian ballet that are doing Tchaikovsky, but I would prefer them doing like Ukrainian stories. I think it's more authentic that way.
yeah, no, that's also true. But I mean, a lot of those classical ballets are Ukrainian stories, folklore stories. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it's time to rename them to the truth. All right. Well, I was lagging a little bit.
You can
Um,
do it, Slavie. Come on, we need you. Tell us the truth. Tell us.
Right. Well, Johnny exposed the emotional core of Putin's narrative, but now let's tackle this go-to excuse: the idea that NATO expansion forced Russia's hand. It's the perfect pivot from identity to geopolitics. Let's break this down with the facts and tie it right to what's happening today. The Kremlin's main argument is that NATO's growth eastward, bringing in countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Baltics, invaded Russia's security zone. This left Putin no option but to respond with the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the full invasion in 2022, all to protect against an existential threat. This claim doesn't hold up under scrutiny. It's not based on history. It's a distortion meant to justify aggression. NATO expansion wasn't the cause of this war. It was a reaction to Russia's long pattern of interference. Nations joined NATO voluntarily, seeking protection from Moscow's influence, not to threaten it. And right now, in September 2025, we're seeing this myth play out in real time with Russian drone incursions into Poland's airspace, also Romania's, and just breaking news today, also over Baltics as well. NATO jets fired shots for the first time since the full-scale war began. So to understand this, we need context. Russia's focus on Ukraine stems from centuries of control, Tsarist rule, and Soviet policies treated it as part of its sphere. NATO, on the other hand, was created in 1949 specifically to deter Soviet expansion, not to target Russia. This is a very important point. When the Cold War ended in 1991 with the Soviet Union's collapse, NATO didn't push outward. It stayed at 16 members while countries freed from Soviet control chose their own paths. Ukraine has its own deep history, rooted in Kievan Rus, a major Slavic center long before Moscow rose to power, as we discussed earlier. Even under the Soviets, it maintained a separate identity, as seen in the Holodomor famine of the 1930s, which killed millions to suppress Ukrainian independence. Putin's 2021 essay linking Ukrainians and Russians as one people revives old imperial ideas like the Russian world, which aim to dominate neighbors rather than respect their sovereignty. So, on the broken promise idea, people often point to a 1990 comment by US Secretary of State James Baker to Gorbachev, saying NATO wouldn't expand 1 inch eastward. This was an informal remark during talks on German reunification, not a binding agreement. Gorbachev confirmed in 2014 interviews, and declassified documents show no formal commitment was made. NATO's Article 10 allows any European country to apply for membership, and in 1997, Russia itself signed the NATO-Russia Founding Act, committing to partnership without claiming a right to block other nations' choices. I have a quick video to show you guys. I got receipts. All right, can you guys see it?
Not quite yet.
All right.
Oh, I can see it. Gorbachev.
Today, people ask me why it was not stipulated in the treaty that NATO must not expand to the east. The following should be taken into account. NATO and the Warsaw Pact existed at that time. What was there to fix in a treaty? The question did not even arise back then. In other words, it is a myth that you were betrayed by the West regarding NATO's eastward expansion. Yes, it's definitely a myth.
Another Russian lie. By the way, I don't know why part of Americans are repeating these lies. because the point of Russian propaganda, it's anti-American. It's like before you start listening and repeating Russian propaganda, you already have to hate United States. And I thought that Americans would be immune from Russian propaganda because it's designed for like Africa, for like Asian countries where Russia has a lot of influence, and they instill the hate towards United States. But lately, like in the last couple of years, like with the election of Trump, and like Republicans, they're like so eager repeating this, like the most dumbest Russian propaganda, which is designed for people who already hate United States. And I'm like, why do people repeat it? Because like, and Russians figured out that if you want people to start speaking this lie, you just put Biden in front of it, like Biden, and then Republicans will say, "Oh, this and that. Did you know?" And they start saying Russian propaganda, but you just have to say Biden. And I guess if you're a Democrat, you have to say, I don't know, Bush or something. Um, I don't know. It's like we are so divided. There is a um, social tensions in this country, and we have to be mindful because it's so easy for Russia to start spewing anti-American propaganda at us as long as they make that division where they say this is Democrats, and some people will eat it up, or you say this is Republicans, and some people will eat it up in this country. And you have to be very careful with that.
I'm just showing a map of NATO European expansion since 1949. But go
Yeah.
on.
So as you can see, uh, uh, so the first countries who were added are the dark blue, and then in 1950 to 1990, you have the next dark, which is like, I guess it's just Spain, Germany, and Turkey, and then in 1999 we have Poland, Hungary, um, and this is this no, this is not Romania, it's like a Slovakia, I don't know what is that, but anyway, so you can see here that Poland only entered after year 2000, right? So what happened before then, and the reason why Poland entered before all these countries joined NATO, voluntarily joined NATO, Soviet Union was having a like an iron grip on Poland. They actually invaded Hungary, they invaded Czechoslovakia. The Hungary they invaded in 1956. The Czechoslovakia they invaded in 1968, and it's easy to forget, but it was really ruthless invasion. It was tanks on the streets. It was people standing like this with their hands stretched, and just tanks driving over them. It was all the hallmarks of Russian invasion. There severe repressions on anyone who would say anything against, you know. And after Russians left, they left lots of like recruited agents over there. Like right now, the Hungary and Slovakia are the friendliest countries to Russia these days, and that's where the invasion of um, Soviet Union happened. And Soviet Union could only invade the countries that were not part of NATO. So as soon as they repelled the Soviet.
Let me go because this is where I'm at right now.
I got you. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Okay, you can go after if I don't make the point that you wanted to, but I'm like
Absolutely.
right there. So here's the key fact: in the 1990s, under President Yeltsin, Russia worked closely with NATO, even discussing potential membership. So, if expansion was truly a threat, why the cooperation then? Putin later described the Soviet collapse as a geopolitical catastrophe. In 2005, not because of NATO, but because it ended Russia's control over its neighbors. The best way to see through this is with a clear timeline. NATO grew because Eastern European countries emerging from decades of Soviet domination wanted security. Russia acted aggressively regardless of NATO's moves, and this pattern hasn't stopped, and it's escalating now as we're seeing it. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolves and Ukraine votes 92% in favor of independence in a referendum that Russia recognized. NATO remains at 16 members, no changes. So Russia's loss of Ukraine came from the failure of its own system, not any Western action. Putin has since framed this as a wrong. He needs to reverse now. So in 1994, Russia signs the Budapest Memorandum pledging to respect Ukraine's borders in exchange for it giving up nuclear weapons. NATO plays no role here. Yet in 2014, Russia violated this agreement by annexing Crimea, showing that the invasion are driven by a desire to reclaim influence, not reactions to alliances. 1997 to 1999, Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic joined NATO. Russia responds by opening a liaison office with the alliance and participating in joint exercises. Yeltsin welcomed the relationship. If this was a crossing of a red line, so why no conflict at the time? In 2004, the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, that was Bulgaria, I think, and others join in. This follows Ukraine's Orange Revolution, which removed pro-Russian leader. Countries like Estonia had already faced Russian cyber attacks in 2007, heightening their fears. Ukraine didn't seriously pursue NATO until after Russia's actions in 2014. 2008, at the Bucharest summit, NATO mentions a possible future for Ukraine and Georgia, but offers no specific plan or timeline. That same year, Russia invades Georgia, a country not on a fast track to NATO, by the way. So this shows Putin acting against neighbors independently of any alliance decisions. NATO hesitated for years, yet Russia moved anyway. We get to 2014. Russia annexes Crimea and starts the conflict in Donbass right after Ukraine's Maidan revolution shifted toward Europe. There had been no NATO expansion since 2009. This was a direct effort to undermine a sovereign government that rejected Russian control. Putin has said as much in his own statements. In 2021 to 2022, Putin demands that NATO withdraw from Eastern Europe and bar Ukraine forever from joining. At that point, Ukraine wasn't pursuing membership. Its constitution declared neutrality until 2019. After the Crimea annexation, the invasion follows, framed as denazification, but UN reports debunk claims of genocide in Donbass. The International Criminal Court has documented over 30,000 war crimes. And the invasion has led to more than 500,000 casualties, all to impose control. This is textbook expansionism. So, fast forward to right now, September 2025. Russian drones violate Polish airspace on September 9th during a massive assault on Ukraine with over 400 drones and missiles. NATO jets shot down 3 or 4 out of 20. The first shots were fired by the alliance since the war started. Just days later, on September 13th, another incursion into Romanian airspace, another NATO member. Poland scrambles reinforcements under Operation Eastern Sentry, and Ukraine offers to train Polish forces on counter-drone tactics. Russian officials downplay it as a stray drones, but experts call it a deliberate test of NATO resolve, pushing boundaries without full war amid stalled peace talks. Mill bloggers even call for strikes on Polish airports. This isn't about NATO expansion. It's Russia probing for weakness, shifting those red lines yet again. Poland joined in 1999. No issue then. Now, drones over Warsaw because Putin can't stand a strong neighbor backing Ukraine. If NATO were the real issue, why did the invasion focus on seizing Kiev and claims of historical rights that have no basis in modern borders? Why target schools, hospitals, maternity wards, and cultural sites as well? This isn't about defense. It's about reasserting dominance, like echoes of past Soviet ambitions. And these 2025 incursions prove the pattern continues. Russia escalates against NATO states not because of expansion, but to intimidate them into abandoning Ukraine. Looking at the bigger picture, NATO is a defensive alliance that has invoked its core mutual defense clause only once, in response to 9/11. In 75 years, it has never launched an unprovoked attack. Russia, by contrast, has attacked its neighbors more than 10 times since 1945, Hungary in 1956, Czechoslovakia in 1968, Afghanistan in 1979, Georgia in 2008, and Ukraine in 2014 and 2022. The pattern of aggression is clear, and now extending to NATO borders. Putin's deeper concern isn't military encirclement. Russia's defense budget and nuclear arsenal far outmatch its neighbors. Leaked documents and his speeches reveal a fixation on historical Russian lands, portraying Ukraine as something artificially separated in 1922. NATO serves as a convenient scapegoat to unify support at home. Putin, a former KGB officer, he sees Ukraine's 2014 revolution as a dangerous example. A Slavic nation choosing democracy and Europe over authoritarian control, which challenges his system. Expansion didn't escalate tensions in the way claimed. After 2004, NATO paused new membership for years. Sweden and Finland joined only after 2022 full-scale invasion, driven by fear, not as a cause. Russia's warnings about red lines have shifted over time, from Baltics to Ukraine, and now potentially beyond, as seen with these drone probes into Poland, Romania, and the Baltics now. In 2021, Ukraine's military was under-equipped compared to Russia's. Full membership was a remote possibility amid internal challenges. Pointing to NATO is like blaming a security system for an intruder's break-in. Eastern European countries joined after enduring generations of Russian dominance, seeking stability, not confrontation. Putin's actions aren't about responding to a threat, they're about preventing Ukraine from building its own future, and now testing how far he can push NATO without consequences. This is backed by the ICC's records of war crimes and satellite evidence of destroyed cities. It's an effort to suppress a democracy, not secure borders. The Poland incursions, a stark reminder. If NATO provoked this, why the claim in 1990s? Why the sudden drone swarms now? It's not expansion, it's empire. But here's the key point. Putin's plan to intimidate NATO and force it to retreat has completely backfired. His war didn't weaken the alliance, it strengthened it. Sweden and Finland joined it after 2022, ending their neutrality. These recent drone incursions into Poland and Romania are accelerating demands for Ukraine to join NATO or for a new, strong alliance to counter Russian aggression. The only way to truly stop Putin is to bring Ukraine into the fold or create that solid defense network, because partial measures just give him room to test and push further. And now, here's the plot twist. It's not about Ukraine needing NATO. NATO needs Ukraine. Those Polish drone chases, NATO scrambled for 3 hours to chase one drone, downing only 3 out of 20. Ukraine's battlefield pros owned against Russia's swarms hold the edge. We're talking real-time tactics, drone hunting hacks, and systems that actually work. Europe can't build that overnight or get that kind of experience. Ukraine's already living it and kicking ass. After these incursions, the response is already in motion. NATO's Operation Eastern Sentry has deployed jets from France, Germany, Denmark, and the UK, along with the Patriot systems, F-35s, and AWACS surveillance, covering the region from the Arctic to the Black Sea. Poland's Foreign Minister Sierkowski is calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, where allies would help shoot down drones and missiles before they reach deeper into Europe, using shared intelligence and teams trained by Ukraine. President Zelensky has supported this, pushing for a joint air defense shield for the continent. The Netherlands and Czech Republic are sending more air defenses, while Lithuania receives German brigades and early warning systems. This isn't just defense, it's proactive, closing Ukraine's skies, neutralizing threats early, and cutting off Putin's ability to spread chaos. His so-called tests are building Europe only stronger. Ukraine isn't just holding on, it's at the center of this new security framework. Putin's vision of empire is falling apart under the weight of a united response. The threat ends when we commit fully. So on that note, Slava Ukraini, and let's secure those skies together. I'm looking at you, Europe.
Героям слава. Really good presentation. Everything is like right on point, and I just want to share with people that this is exactly what Russia doesn't want you to know. That Sweden and Finland just proved that this is not real. As soon as as soon as Russia attacked Ukraine, Sweden and Finland, they joined NATO, and they said the reason why they joined NATO is because of Russian full-scale invasion into Ukraine, because they are afraid. NATO is the only way to protect themselves from Vladimir Putin, but it's actually from Russia, from Russians, because before they joined, Russia freely just entertained the ideas, stop helping Ukraine on you'll be next, and it's a lot harder to say that to somebody who is already inside NATO, because once you are under cover of this NATO alliance, Russia is afraid to attack you. NATO countries have never been attacked by outside force historically, and Russia just hates that fact. So this is a very important, very interesting piece of um, um, Russian propaganda. But the reason Russians repeat it, even though how ridiculous it is because when Russians say it, European leaders entertain it. You know, they entertain it, and like stop entertaining Russian stupid dumb things. You have to speak to Russians in the language that they understand. You have to be firm. Um, for example, like I was speaking, I was like whatever. I was at the gun shooting class, whatever, and the instructor was saying all kinds of like weird ideas, like California is a communist state and all that. But she was also full of all kinds of Russian propaganda. I don't know why Americans repeat Russian propaganda. And she said, well, NATO is this and NATO is that. How is Russia supposed to do what? I'm like, do you realize that NATO is you? Like, this propaganda is not made for you, it's made for people who hate America, right? Why are you, do you like, and she's like, I love America, like whatever, you know, the, why repeating this? Because Biden. Yeah, but
Yep.
to Russians, there's no Biden. We're all Americans. We're equally, they're going to destroy everyone. They're using our division within United States to separate us and to start repeating Russian propaganda, Russian lies. But once they destroy us, they don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. You're all the same to them. They're going to destroy you and kill you. Stop repeating Russian propaganda.
I think
Once
next time we do propaganda episode, I'd love to go into more of Russian campaigns that they do in more detail, because I mean they bust one out every month. So more specifically, and their groups that they how they organize, I think it would be interesting for people to know exactly how they do this. And weirdly, just last week, United States pulled out from fighting propaganda, Russian propaganda, Chinese propaganda, Indian.
I I have some history quotes, if that's okay. I think history is very fun when talking about Russia because Russians hate history, and it's such a good way to destroy everything Russia is saying. So I have a quote from a Danish diplomat who was visiting Russia in 1709. That was before Russia was called Russia. They were called Moscovia back then, but Peter the Great was already an emperor, and in 1721 he renamed Moscovia into Russia. And so this guy, he is a Danish diplomat. He's a very well-read, very enlightened person, kind of a superstar of his era, of his time. His name is Great Ust-Yul. And if you know history, you know this name. Um, so he says recommendation how to speak to Russians. He says, when dealing with Russians, it's best to speak to them harshly and rudely. Then they will give in. Otherwise, for example, if you want to constantly treat them kindly, there is no way to come to an agreement with them. So this is Russia, guys. If you're gonna treat them kindly, you're not gonna come. They don't like it. Like honestly, I'm not being like facetious or anything like that. There's another quote by Nikolai Switsin. This is the guy who was a personal friend of Peter the Great, his secret advisor, um, Burgomaster of Amsterdam. That's a mayor of the time. He was elected mayor of Amsterdam 13 times, more than any person in history. A great celebrated citizen of Netherlands. And he was talking about Russia as well. It's about 1670s. 1670s is the time of this quote. So he says, "This much is a definite truth about these people. The harder you need, the better the dough." So the more you punish them, the better is the outcome. And this is in response because they had a conflict with Russians as a diplomats from Netherlands, and so Russians were trying to take advantage of them, but their main ambassador was very very rude to Russians. He was like just screaming at them. So they came back the next day and they were very very nice all of a sudden. So he's describing this. He says, now they're twice as polite, while the ambassador, on the other hand, made no secret of his indignation. The Muscovites, because that's before Russians, the Muscovites, even without a royal command, treat foreign ambassadors impolitely, thinking that by doing so, they're elevating their Tsar. If they succeed in this, they report it to their superiors, hoping to receive a reward. Such is the policy of this country, which is why the embassies are treated so poorly here. So this is a long history of Russians disrespecting any foreigners. It's in their historical. They feel it elevates Putin. It elevates them. If they can be rude to you, if they can lie to you, if they can get away with any kind of lies, if you repeat their propaganda, they are celebrating. You know, so don't do this because you're giving them opportunity to disrespect you, to laugh at you, to think that you're weak, that you fell for their stuff. That's not the way to talk to these people. By the way, I figured out why my sound is so shit. I'm recording through these headphones. I forgot to change it, and now I cannot change it because it's like live recording. Sorry guys, like I said, we're gonna have these problems for a
It's
long
a
time. Where
learning lesson. But
I'm
I
I'm
also
not smart.
I troubleshoot it as well. They're like it's gonna be much better if both of you wear headphones.
I wish I could switch back to that other mic, but it's impossible during the recording. So I guess we have to just deal with it till the end. So
Um,
Slavi, I know we have something else to talk about.
okay, you wanna okay, let's do this quick because we've been going for 2 hours now. So but I know
Yeah, it's three easy things that you just say no, no, and no, but it takes a long time to kind of dig in and to discuss. It's like that proverb that one idiot in 5 minutes can uh, ask so many questions that 1,000 wise men will have a lifetime to answer. So this is one of those things. It's easy and hard to debunk these things. Easy because it's like 5 second Wikipedia search. Hard because you still have to do it. You have to explain this. You have to go and not just say it's not true, because then you don't know who is right, who is wrong. You have to show why it's not true.
I don't know if I would call it easy because there's a lot of Russian propaganda because they have these like fake websites that they write their own history. So I think that's another part of why people don't know the truth
Yeah.
and believe Russia is because Russia is making the internet dirty with their fake websites that make these websites look absolutely like real, like a news website, like everything is legit, and they make thousands and thousands and hundreds of them. And that's how AI also, that's how they manipulate AI. So I wouldn't call it easy. And, even I like I can catch. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. But for a person that's just learning things, I don't. It's very easy to miss where it's so good what Russia does in terms of erasing these kind of, I mean, like our history and changing narratives and switching it to them. I mean, if they're good at anything, that's what they're good at. So.
They're good at flooding the information space with propaganda. They create thousands of these websites. They train and send out experts, so-called experts, out there. They pay for the right information to be divulged, right? They pay bloggers, they pay people to repeat this.
A
Um,
journalist, American journalist, like worked for New York
yeah,
Times. Actually, many times, if you check the name, it'd be like, who wrote this garbage? Like even like for New York Times or whatever, it'd be like, oh, see a Russian name. That makes sense.
shout out to Adam Rounds. We have some regulars in the chat room. Yeah, this is going to be a regular thing.
But not this day. We still need to find our day that we need to stick to. But but yeah, we've got it, the geopolitics and the history, and I'd say this is the sleaziest layer, and it's that Putin's traditional values facade. He sells Russia as morality's fortress, defending family, faith, pure life against the West's decay. But peel it back, and it's a rotting mask for repression, corruption, and blood soaked conquest. So Putin loves the script. In his speeches, like the 2025 Victory Day address, he vows that Russia will never abandon traditional values. His 2022 decree locks it in a state policy, and as a 2024 one, even offers residency to foreigners who embrace them. Pro Kremlin voices like blogger Alexander Jost, I don't know if Alexandra Jost, sorry, push it, that Moscow gives women real choice, rejects Western modernities as poison. This chick's is like, I looked at her stuff, and it's like most insane propaganda about Russian family values. It was like Sasha in Russia or something, Dasha in Russia. I forget her at, but it's, yeah. But anyways, Patriarch Kirill, I don't even want to call him Patriarch Kirill
Patriarch.
calls the war a holy war, a clash where Russia stands pure. It's the ultimate spin. Rally the base, shame the West, paint tanks as these moral shields that he blesses. But reality, it's a grotesque hypocrisy that spits on every claim. So let's break it down. First is the family values.
I'm just holding because if I'm gonna start speaking, I won't stop. It is like the biggest
Let's
lie
go.
ever.
Let's go what we have. We have family values. Next, we have what they do is faith and religious freedom, and then the moral integrity as well. So, do you wanna?
No, no, it's all you. It's up, if you want, I can, but I think you
No, of course.
prepared it.
We'll do
The-
this is
When
you.
it comes family values, okay? So this is the Putin, right? He decriminalized domestic violence. Like if you are beating your child or your wife, the instructions are you have to take it, you know. And actually, the patriarch Kirill that Slavie just mentioned, he said the same thing. You know, we're not like these evil Westerners where we have to call police every time when a husband kind of like does loses temper and beats you. You know, like don't call the police is like evil Western invention. You know, he's your husband. You have to take it. That's why Russians kill their wives, brides. We just discussed a story where a Russian killed his bride on the first day of marriage, first night of marriage, and he didn't even go to jail. He just signed up to go to war to Ukraine, and he's walking freely around town. He's like, ha ha ha, you know, I killed I killed that person. Now I'm just gonna go to Ukraine, and maybe he's lucky enough not to die. He'll be back in 6 months with a wounded soldier, a hero of Russia. Get himself another wife. With the money that he gets paid, which is pretty good. It's better than what you can get paid. Um, I talked to many women, Russian women. I had a friend in St. Petersburg, and she said that's even before the decriminalization of domestic violence in Russia. She said she would call the police because her husband was beating her, right? And they're just laughing at her. So like, why are you laughing? She's like bleeding and stuff like that. She's crying. Like, he beat you, So they don't even take it seriously even before decriminalization. You have to really, show that you can kind of make police's life miserable. You have to have some pull, some weight in Russian society. If you're just nobody just calling the police, they're not even gonna bother. Because as a culture, uh, it's very normalized of abuse, of beating, of rape, of all these things. It's a common thing where in Russia, in different cities and regions, there's like serial rapists. Like some person would rape like 60 to 70 times. Everybody knows that rapist. Nobody even writes to the police. People just wear clothing kind of protective because they know, oh, we have a rapist over there. They're like, everybody knows his name. It's like, it's crazy to think about it, like in where we live, you know.
Rape
My
is
father,
normal in Russia. In fact, they use it as a
it is,
weapon. And
no, they use it as a weapon against Ukrainians in war. That's like one of the tactics to subjugate. But amongst themselves, they use it, right? My father, he was a doctor in Ukraine. Right now, he's retired, and he was dating this lady from Tver. Tver is like so close to Moscow, you know, and she would wear this like uh, twine. She would tie herself with twine around her trousers and underpants, and she would be all tied in this twine. And he's like, "Why are you wearing twine?" And she's like, "Well, I don't want to be raped." And he's like, were you like raped like in Ukraine? He's like, no, 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 not in Ukraine, but that's like how we dress in Russia. Because like, if you don't want to be raped, you have to like tie all kinds of twine around you, and that's how they go to work. That's how they come back. So you have to make it really hard for a rapist to untie all those, twine. And he's like, is that like normal over there in Russia? Like you're like this close to Moscow. So like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like everybody, and eventually she stopped dressing like that in Ukraine because she realized she's actually not being raped on a regular basis. I wonder if we can say that word so many times. This 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 stream is gonna be um, I don't know, downvoted. But you can't talk about Russian family values without the grape, the grapes, whatever is the word
also,
that's not gonna trigger.
yeah, we need to give a trigger warning if anything, but
Sorry, guys.
we
Yeah, we
find
already had we already had some moderated suffering, some mental breakdown just because we discussed the things that Russians are doing regularly. It's not easy to discuss these things, but unfortunately, this is who we have to deal with. We had to learn it. We had to learn it same way. I wish I'd never learned it myself, but it is a culture that's real. This stuff is happening daily, you know.
and we're
When
not even hearing the worst of it. Like,
No, we're being so easy on you guys.
yeah.
Like we can tell you the things that your hair will turn gray. Um, I'm not even gonna go into this right now.
When I get into it and read some, my stomach literally turns for, yeah, it's anyways. But for this family values, the points that I wanted to make, Putin preaches the reverence for mothers and strong homes. Yet Russia ripped 20,000 Ukrainian children from their families, and only 1,560 returned. They're also putting these kids on an online catalog for adoption and listing traits also as obedient or calm. How is that any sort of family values? Also, these Russians, they beat these poor children. Um, Also, the Russian children, nearly 30 million Russian children, are getting militarized patriot training. All their toys is military, like tanks and everything, all the strollers. Is that family values? And as we said earlier too, domestic violence, it was decriminalized since 2017. Beatings are family matters now in Russia unless it hospitalizes. Police tell soldiers' wives to stay quiet on abuse. And the Council of Mothers and Wives, formed in 2022 to demand accountability for the lost sons in the meat grinder, had its leader detained and branded a foreign agent by 2023 because, sorry, but I messed up there. But do you know of that?
The leader of wives against the war or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Council of Mothers and Wives.
Mothers and Wives Council. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's a terrorist organization according to Russia. So these mothers and wives who have their children sent to war, they killed over there. A lot of times, they're just executed or whatever. They don't get paid a lot of times, so they have no legal protections of any sorts. So these mothers and wives, they form coalition, and in the Russian legislative space, they're viewed as criminals, as terrorists, as traitors. You know, that's family
Also,
values for you.
Also, their official poverty stats claim under 10% in 2023, but they rigged the metrics, of course.
Oh yeah, you cannot trust any statistic coming from Russia. They will rewrite it a month later. Like if they do a statistic and it's not good enough, they'll reduce statistic. They'll fire the person who was doing statistic,
No,
and
no,
a
they
month
won't
later.
fire them. They'll go down like a window or a T.
No, they'll. But I've heard that there was a major mess up, like in before the full-scale invasion. They did some statistic that like 30% of Russians don't have toilets or something, and that person got fired.
That's
Well,
true. They
yeah,
don't. Like 80% of Russia. But okay, so with the poverty stats, 10%, they said under 10% in 2023. They rigged the metrics and the real number. You want to know the real number? 2.3 million more families are under the poverty line, scraping by the
that.
inflation and gifted meat grinders and for the dead soldiers.
By the way, so 2 point whatever million, that's incorrect because I heard the number that half of Russian population was under the poverty line, but they would hide that statistic. They would come up with new statistic just to.
I think you're right. I think it's probably a lot more, but maybe this number is like really bad, like no home, like nothing. Like
This is the number that official Russia will be okay with. Oh no, it's just
that's true.
they need the number where they can say, oh, it's the same in United States. It's the same in Europe. Any kind of statistic you throw at Russia, say, well, they have homeless in California. I've seen I've seen Skid Row pictures. We're good. Nothing wrong over
Hey,
here.
like if for how Russia's economy is doing now, they have like the Kremlin economists coming out with like Russia is in real trouble right now, and So, and it's weird to hear that from them. So I don't know if it's one of those, oh, we're poor Russia, like, we're going through this shit, look at us, or why are you laughing?
Uh, Adam made me laugh.
Oh,
By the way, he says my mic is a little low, and it's guys, it's my fault. It's my fault completely.
it's
I'm
so
just
much better
learning.
now, though. I'm not hearing crackling.
Um, Adam said, how much longer before Trump starts having people fly out the windows? Basically in Russia, if you mess up as a high ranking official of sorts, you have to jump out the window. They come to you, they say, listen, you have family, you have daughters, you have sons, like you don't want us to send some Chechens to assault your daughters, to cut off a penis of your son and make him eat it. So do the right thing, jump out of a window. Obviously, Adam is well informed about what Russia is, and we are kind of going into that direction over here. It's kind of scary to think about it. The last thing I want to do is United States be anything like Russia. I mean, Ukrainians are literally dying not to become Ruskies, not to become Russians, not to become like that culture because they know what it is. You don't want that here. Anything Russia related, you don't want it. You're not gonna like it, even if you are on a beneficiary, because some positions in Russia are very beneficial. If you're in information, if you lie for Russia, you're gonna make a lot of money, but everything around you turns to shit
I think
very
that
quickly.
mostly goes for MAGA because now there is this oligarchy happening with the tech bros, right? They control a lot. But even for MAGA, I know they're like all for it now, but they need to feel it. And these freedom loving people, or as they say, they're not going to like it. They're not going to like living like that.
I made my microphone louder. I hope not too much crackling or whatever.
All right.
Mitch, Mitch Ashdown, hello. Do we have anything else? I think we did a good effort here. I can talk about this a long time, because Russia talks about it nonstop, and somebody has to. But hopefully, we kind of arm you with the little bits and pieces of information. Go out in the world, and you are a soldier. In each person listening is a soldier in the information war. Whether you understand this or you don't understand this, Russia can use you as a useful idiot to repeat what Russia says. They still cannot believe that some Americans repeat Russian propaganda. It
I
makes them
think
so happy. They
Tucker
laugh.
Carlson is probably the perfect example of, but they pay him big money, like insane amount of money, to be this idiot and repeat the most ridiculous.
It's as it says, it's a very warm under a dragon's wing. Russia takes you under its wing, and they give you like the best treatment, the best boys if you're into boys, the best girls, whatever you want. They
Tape
film
you,
everything.
they film you as well, secretly.
They film you. So if you go, if you like somebody very young, you go to Russia, you're gonna receive everything that you like. But keep in mind that Russia films you. They're gonna have a footage of that, and then 20, 30 years down the line, they may contact you and say, listen, we have this footage, and we gonna suppress it because we don't want you to get in trouble. You're such a good friend of Russia. But do the right thing. We are a friend of yours. Be a friend of ours. Do the right thing. So yeah, I mean, and then you gonna help Russia to destroy your country. What we built here. I mean, I did not build United States, but I love this country. I did an oath that when the time comes, I will protect this country with my life. I will arm myself, and I will protect this country. And I believed it when I said it, and I believe it. Um, but it's going to be destroyed. And Russia doesn't have to invade United States. They only put the emphasis on a land invasion. That's only 25%. 75% of everything that Russia is doing is done in information space, in political space, in politicians, in corruption. They're going to corrupt us. They're going to buy our news sources. They're going to buy our politicians. They're going to buy our voices. They're going to suppress those who say something opposite of what Russia wants to hear. They will turn this country upside down. And each one of you is a soldier in information war. Everything that you hear here, go and spread. You can fight your own battle, your own war. Each time you hear Russian propaganda, be a little voice that counters it, a little voice of reason, a little voice for the United States, for Ukraine, for the Western values, for the Western world, a thorn in the side of Russia.
Should we go to questions now?
If you guys have some questions, shoot, because I think we covered the three very good points. Uh, we put out lots of information. If you guys want some clarifications, please shoot. If not,
I'm just going through right now. Um, uh, Mitch said, kind of just seeing this right now. My understanding is Russia was always outsider in the courts of medieval Europe. Think they maybe still have that inferiority complex from that era.
um, Russia has superiority complex, if anything.
But
Um,
it comes from not being enough. It's envy. It's greed and envy.
It's great. Yeah, they never have enough. It's not an accident that Russia sits on that huge territory. You know, they don't have toilets, they don't have roads, they don't have good pay, good living standards, but they always have enough soldiers and enough ammo and enough rockets, enough tanks to go and conquer a little more and a little more and a little more. And they like that. It's done not with their silent agreement, it's done with their enthusiastic approval. You have to understand that everything Putin is doing, he's doing with Russian enthusiastic yes. But
Uh,
they do have a superiority complex.
Annette said that John Pasquale brought a can of kvass taras today. What can I expect?
Can of kvass? Well, try it. It's different. I mean, are we going to describe to you the taste that you're about to taste? You want to see if we come close?
It's
It's like
like,
a
I would say
fermented.
it's like liquid bread, fermented, very like carbonated. It's good.
Yeah, it's a traditional like carbonated drink from that era, from back in the day. I guess some versions also had alcohol, but today it's all non-alcoholic.
Yeah. You know they exist is asking Slavie, where'd you find this guy Johnny? He's very compelling in style and massive content, like the Energizer Bunny.
Thank you, guys.
I don't know. Where did I find you? I forget.
I think I found you. I approached you. I said, listen, we have this information to share. And you said, yes, yes, we do. And you never know how these things will go, how these collaborations will go. But we are united in the same idea, same goals. We can see how important it is, how dangerous this war. We are in a war, you know. You want to start fighting early, you know. Don't wait till when Russians are here. They're already here, you know. Russians are already here. We have Tulsi Gabbard, we have all kinds of problems already. You know, it's never too early to start, but we should have started yesterday.
Do you have any final thoughts for today?
Final thoughts is I want to say something uplifting something. All of these things are very entertaining, very useful, and kind of fun. It's all in how you look at it. I think when you arm yourself with information, as I'd say me and Slavie, we're armed with information. Sometimes it's kind of infuriating to kind of see that Russia keeps putting it out, one thing after another, and then Americans repeat it. That's kind of a downer. But at the same time, if enough of us get informed, if enough of us get armed, it becomes fun. You know, there's nothing more fun than listening to a lie when you already know the truth. This war is here. War is not going to go away until you win, right? So have fun, arm yourself, enjoy yourself, support Ukraine, be on the right side of history, and God bless America and Slava Ukraini.
Yep. That was great final thoughts in closing. And I'll do the same now. What a battle, truth warriors. You brought the fury with those questions, I guess. And we've left Kremlin's lies in smoking ruins. We've shredded the one people colonial corpse. We've torched the NATO expansion smokescreen. And we've unmasked the traditional values hypocrisy. A blood-stained billboard for child thieves, silenced and murdered priests, and klepto kings. Tonight, hesitation lost and the truth won. So, Johnny, thank you. Your points tonight were amazing, fire. The presentation was great, and I think a lot of people needed to hear them put in exactly that way.
And likewise for you. I think you did a great presentation as well. I'm just going to say one last thing, and if you want to add to that, you're welcome. But considering history, Moscovia was fighting with Ukraine. Moscovia doesn't exist, Ukraine still exists. After Moscovia, Russian Empire was fighting with Ukraine. Russian Empire doesn't exist, Ukraine still exists. After Russian Empire, Soviet Union was fighting with Ukraine, was genociding Ukraine. Soviet Union doesn't exist, Ukraine still exists. And now we have this next and hopefully final war where Russian Federation is fighting with Ukraine. So as the way I look at it, Ukraine is in the finals and we're gonna win, like we always do.
Absolutely. That was great. I'd like to thank also Annette for helping us out and taking notes, letting us know after what we need to improve on. So the show will get better. Don't worry. Please come back. And yeah, thank you to you, the viewers, the rock stars, as I like to call you. You guys fuel us to keep fighting the information war. And if you got value out of tonight's stream, smash that like button like a Russian tank. Share this with your friends who need the wake up call. And make sure you're subscribed to Yarchenko and Johnny's channel at Young Ukrainians. And don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Your support turns words into weapons on the ground. This is just the beginning. Don't forget, Monday, this SlavaCast Now episode 2 will be out as a full video podcast. The analytics from the first episode came in, and SlavaCast has great potential. The algorithm liked it because you liked it, but we need you to keep pushing it forward so YouTube starts testing it to a larger audience. That's where we're at right now. So help us out. This fight is far from over, and neither are we. Stick with us because truth is a weapon, and we're going to keep firing it. I'm Slavie, and this is Johnny, and this was SlavaCast Live. Good night, stay loud, stay free, and be brave like Ukraine. And of course, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Bye, guys. Let's forget. Yay!
Shall I end the stream? You tell me.
Oh, yeah. They can still hear us.
Okay, bye guys then.